To understand the truth about Buddhist monks and nuns, it's important to remember that in fundamentalist Buddhism, nuns and monks are expected to keep hundreds and hundreds of rules. Spend some time in a Buddhist monastery and you'll find some cranky, neurotic people. I'm not talking about visiting on a day when they put their smiling faces on. Spend a week there. Spend a month there. You see, wherever humans gather, well, Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything is crap, which it goes a long way to explain why the majority of humans are governed by Yang's attributes of being rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. And these tendencies crept into the Buddhist tradition like a mold, like black mold. This is exemplified well in Thich Nhat Hanh's book, Old Path, White Clouds, where there's a great distinction drawn between Gautama the Buddha and his evil cousin Devadatta. And they pretty much personified yin and yang. Gautama personifying yin and Devadatta personifying yang. You practice the Buddha's path through the lens of yang, and you're going to be grumpy and miserable. However, I recommend, and here's a wonderful example of that. Someone much more clever than myself once described Mace Windu as a Jedi who never met a rule he wouldn't keep fastidiously, which is completely opposite from Qui-Gon Jinn, who didn't hate rules and he didn't hate the Jedi Council. He just loved the Force and wanted to flow with the Force in perfect harmony with the Force, and just go where he was led and do as he was led, how he was led. A great example of that would be the yin attributes of being flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, as well as lucid, cooperative, and kind. So when it comes to pursuing the Buddhist path through this lens, I would remind you of the archetype of the Dzogchen Lama, spontaneous, carefree, and at ease. When we look at the Buddha's early discourses, Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the rules were simple. Have loving intention, loving communication, loving behavior, and loving commerce. Or in other words, loving intention and then kind communication, kind conduct, and kind commerce. This is it. Now, some people is like, well, how do we know exactly what's kind? That is an excellent question. It's been said that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. A litmus test of our meditation practice is love's centered spontaneity, through which our choices and our utterances and our deeds could flow. If our primary concern is either mindfulness and meditation and the spontaneous love it generates, or it's on concentration and rule keeping and doctrinal fastidiousness. Those are two separate paths. I've seen nuns and monks on two separate paths. I've traversed both those paths. That's why I promote the path of mindfulness, meditation, and love's centered spontaneity. So what is a monk? What is a nun? Well, you've heard the old joke, I don't smoke, I don't cuss, I don't drink. God damn it, I left my cigarettes at the bar. So when we define ourselves by what we don't do, we run a very high probability of missing the forest for the trees. In his commentary on Essence of Refined Gold, titled The Path to Enlightenment, the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet explained in the opening chapters that every Lama is his or her own sect. Many people consider me a renegade Lama, and that's just fine. In my book, a nun or a monk is simply someone who is defined by practice. Health permitting, they live as if on retreat. They spend approximately 8 hours a day in formal study and an additional 8 hours a day in formal practice. Not one of this, oh, I just meditate as I go through my day. No, that's bullshit. Sitting in formal meditation practice. Did I say 8? I meant 4. 4 hours a day for each. 4 hours a day of meditation, 4 hours a day of formal study. From a place of enthusiasm. The sixth-fold of the eightfold path is enthusiasm, not effort, not discipline, joyful enthusiasm. If this is your deal, then regardless of how long or short you wear your hair, regardless of the style of clothes you wear, if you are joyfully defined by your practice of the path, gung-ho, full-time, then in my book, you're a monastic. There are many people who would disagree. That's just fine. Now, I've got to tell you, if someone decides to become a nun or a monk, there are some significant challenges. I'm going to list 2 of them for you right now, perhaps 3. The first one is there are institutions who are defined by yang, who are rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. And if you wind up in one of these monasteries, they will chew you up and spit you out. They will make you twice the monster that they are, or they will just kick you out, maybe harming you first. There's a passage from the Christian Bible, and I'm going to paraphrase it. You cross land and sea to make one proselyte, and when you do, you make him twice the son of perdition as yourself. So, if you are a Mace Windu, you can thrive in a monastic setting. If you are Qui-Gon Jinn, you will not. That's been my experience, and the experience of many who have come before me. Let me tell you about some of my spiritual heroes. Gaurab Dorji, so the Buddha, my number 1 spiritual hero. Lao Tzu and the Buddha. So the Buddha lived in at least two, perhaps 3, depending how you want to count it, monastic organizations. It didn't work out for him. He had to forge his own path. So are we following the Buddha's example or the Buddhist trappings? The same thing can be said about one of the great reformers of Buddhism, Gaurab Dorje. No ordination, dressed like a monk, lived a simple life, had a few students. The author of The Path to Enlightenment, Yongjie Zhuangzhui, an unorthodox monk, considered a renegade monk or an outsider monk by his own description. People found flaw with him because he was too compassionate to his family, too compassionate to his mother, who ordained as a nun, too compassionate to his sister, who ordained as a nun. He led a simple life. He wrote a treatise or 2. He meditated, he lived, he died. His writings are cherished by the majority of Chan and Zen practitioners around the world. Dzampa Rinpoche was born in privilege as recognized as a tulku, considered to be reincarnation of a high bodhisattva, given his own monastery. When he came of age, he put his affairs in order, said, "Thanks for all the rice. I'm going to go be homeless now." He spent the rest of his life as a homeless, begging Lama. Living in complete poverty, living outside except during the coldest parts of the year, when either he would be invited to teach in a nice warm monastery or live in a tent. But the majority of the time, outdoors. So the people who have had the greatest effect on me and my spiritual development have been renegade lamas. Now, one of the big problems in my country, in America, and in many places around the world is that rather than legislators exploring the causes of homelessness and trying to put them to an end, making sure treating humans as if food, shelter, clothing, medical care, education, employment were human rights. Instead of doing that, their idea is to just arrest the homeless. Hey, Garab Dorje, also known as Prahe Vajra, was homeless. Patrul Rinpoche, Dza Patrul Rinpoche, homeless. In America, they would have been imprisoned for it. And in prison, they would have been tortured. Because if someone said, "We want you to behave as a slave and work for 8 to 12 hours a day for free or for pennies," and someone says, "No, thank you. I'd rather meditate and help people while I'm here in prison," they will be brutalized and then thrown in solitary confinement, which the UN considers torture. That's horrible. So one of the things I'm doing as a very fortunate renegade Lama is I'm doing my best to set up lines of support through this Patreon, through this channel, so that folks could support this channel through Patreon or through YouTube, joining on YouTube. I don't do this because I want to buy a Lexus. I don't do this because I want a mansion. I do this because I would like the Buddha Joy Meditation School to be able to support the next generations of nuns, monks, and yogis in Tibet before the fall of Tibet. So in Southeast Asia, once you ordain as a nun or once you ordain as a monk, you're pretty much, they give you robes, they give you a bowl, and the rest of, and you live in a culture where you're allowed to be homeless and you're allowed to beg for the necessities, or you can go live in a monastery. In America, it's not like that. In Tibet, it wasn't like that. In Tibet, nuns and monks had to pay for food, shelter, clothing, and supplies, and trainings. And if they couldn't, they'd go off and be homeless. As someone who lives in a hyper-capitalistic country where homelessness has been outlawed and who is profoundly disabled, that was extraordinarily stressful and a great big distraction. And I'm like I said, I'm really lucked out. My food, shelter, and clothing are taken care of. Super grateful for that. But I do not live in a vacuum. And so I would absolutely love it if the support this channel received could support and finance the next generations of nuns, monks, and yogis. Nuns, monks, and lamas, so that they don't have to worry about food, shelter, and clothing and training. They can just receive their training, act on the training, master the training, and then go out and help people. So that's one of my secret agendas, is that I would love the Buddha Joy Meditation School to help to the next generation in America and around the world. Now, you look at current events in the news, and that might be unrealistic. Who knows what's going to happen to my country and my species? have no idea. We're living in some really grotesque times. But I'm going to use the opportunities before me and the talents I have as best I can to help as many people directly through the teachings and indirectly through support. Right now, in all honesty, that's a pipe dream. The Buddha Joy Meditation School basically is an, what do you call it? It's a paper lion that is supported by a very, 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 very small handful of friends and relatives. But I'm just putting it out there so you know where I'm coming from. If you can help out for $1 a month, groovy. That's awesome. If you can't, that's no problem. I know what it's like to be penniless. You're welcome to the teachings. You're welcome to my advice. You're welcome to ask me questions in the, what's it called? The chat windows. I'm here for you. The Dharma does not have to be bought. The gospel does not have to be sold. Well, now that I've beaten that horse into the ground, I would love to meditate with you. Before we start that, let's break for about 40 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. I've spent more than half my life studying, practicing, and reverse engineering full-time the teachings and practices and techniques of each school of Buddhism so that I could play the Yoda to your Luke Skywalker and help you to quickly and easily become the person that your dog already thinks you are. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. I'd like to begin, and it is technically unnecessary to chant if you want to meditate. However, I found that most people take comfort in like having something like a starter's pistol to meditate and then a finish line to complete their meditation. And so I do that with short love-oriented chanting. We're going to begin with 2 brief chants. These are not prayers to real or imagined celestial entities. These are words we use to exercise our loving intentions. The love known as bodhicitta and the enthusiasm known as refuge. So we will begin with a recitation that's more literal, and it's set to something I describe as a triplet chant. Together. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on thee, Buddha's example, instructions, and students. So the bottom bit that's highlighted is so useful that it earned the metaphoric nickname of the 3 wish-fulfilling jewels, which is inferred in the final figurative, concise recitation, which is set to the bookend chant together. May I liberate all beings by relying on the 3 jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the 3 jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the 3 jewels. You'll notice these people here. So, quick explanation. Fitness is important to those of us with ADHD. It's a great way to access dopamine. So after my first daily live stream, health permitting, I like to go for a brisk walk while listening to a discourse. And around 10, I like to practice a variation of geriatric step back squat thrusts while chanting this recitation. I proceeded by chanting an excerpt from a root text, and I concluded with a bit of the old silent meditation. I think this is a fun way of blending meditation with fitness, but that's just me. It's not just me, it's very popular amongst Dzogchen lamas. Some do it superstitiously, I like to do it pragmatically. Now, let's take a moment to review the meditation instructions. Mindfulness and meditation are known by many names, including Zen, Proto-Zen, Shandhyana, Mahamudra, Mahasandhi, Ati-Yoga, Dzogchen, and even Treksho. And despite the fanciness of these names, this is very, very simple. Let's start with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we access the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord. It has evolved not to support active concentration, but instead to help us to perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. This is well typified by inhalation's 12-syllable recitation, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. Yes, people who are stuck in rigidity, fear, and controlling tendencies consider the monkey mind to be a flaw, but many of us, the minority of us, consider it to be a feature. What are some of the antics of mind? Well, through its sense organs, mind can perceive appearance, resonance, sensation, flavor, and fragrance. Internally, mind can notice emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. Now, in this great soup of stuff that we can notice, what do we do with it? Enter, oopsie, that's weird. Aha, now I know what happened. Un, deux, trois, let's hit a copy. 1, 2, and let's go right here. Hit paste. Well, that's weird. Come on now. There we go. Meditation. I wondered what happened to that and why things were off. I did some editing recently and it wasn't as skillful as I would have preferred. Okay, well, that was fun. So let's get back to it. Let's explore, let's answer the question, what do we do with all the stuff we notice, by exploring the little thing us big kids call meditation. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we wind up accessing our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within our spinal cord's lower lumbar region and upper cervical region. It has evolved to help us to both physically relax, as well as mentally release, as is typified by exhalation's 12 syllables, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Now, it's not our job to rigidly and superstitiously believe the mind is literally non-graspable. It's not our job to pseudo-intellectually try to prove to ourselves and others that mind is literally non-graspable. Way back in the 4th grade, they should have taught us about figurative statements. Non-graspability is a figurative idea. Here's how it works. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation can now feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. It could feel as if it was as non-graspable as the illusion, the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could be tantalizing to the eye, is intangible to the hand. And there you go. This is the root of many Buddhist metaphors, including birthlessness, deathlessness, and selflessness. Those things are just metaphors for the experience relaxing into our exhalation. Oopsie, let's try that again. Please allow me to remind you that if at any point during the remainder of this live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, that you simply that you type your question as specifically as you can in the chat window. Now, together as a team, let us meditate as transformatively as young Luke Skywalker on Dagobah under the guidance of Yoda. Let's switch gears from 12-syllable exercise to a 3-syllable exercise. As we inhale, we could silently and mentally recite, notice this. And as we exhale, we could silently and mentally recite, relaxing. Let's switch gears from the three-syllable exercise to the one-syllable exercise. This converts pretty easily. Form refers to physical sensations, then refers to recollection, dream refers to imagination. As we breathe in, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, and as we exhale, we could silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease. Every 9 minutes or so, I check for questions. At this moment, I think it could be quite fun if, together as a team, we chanted an excerpt from the total space of Vajrasattva, considered by some to be the source text of Dzogchen. Notwithstanding what, whose, and where, all that one uses and enjoys arises from oneself. It is we who manifest. Is it we who manifest our world with all its blessings and curses? If so, do we do so literally or figuratively? Oopsie, that's really weird. Let's do a bit of the old editing. Okay, whoopsie. Let's try that again. Together. Here of males and females, the queen of equality has never spoken. The distinctions we cling to with white-knuckle intensity are of no consequence to those who see with eyes of wisdom. Are we our own jailers who build our prison cells from our controlling tendencies and their trivial distinctions? And let's continue meditating. Together, let us chant. Here there is no mention of something to accomplish, by means of resolute, forceful contact. Abandoning our rigidity and controlling tendencies like so much night soil, the Mahasandhi yogi lives spontaneous, carefree, and at ease. Together. But it is deemed that possessing thee on the path of bliss, a magical illusion arises. As foreshadowed earlier in the text, we have returned to the potency of vowels and consonants, the syllables that may very well lure us into contrivance, the promise of bliss. Welcome to the live stream. If you wish to begin with the opening lecture, just drag the indicator bar to the left. Otherwise, you're welcome to join us for meditation right now. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist or Taoist meditation, philosophy, or application, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Together as a team, let's chant. Whoops, what is up with this lack of contemplative notation? Or not contemplative notation, but chanting notation. Together. Since nature cannot be defined in one single way, it appears according to how one looks at it. In the swirling maelstrom of the circumstantial, the physical, the interpersonal, and the mental, our perspective, comprehension, and sensory acuity are ever-changing, rendering the rigid grasp upon our assessments utter folly. Together. Even the bliss from the effort and wish for its manifestation is a great hindrance and defect. The quest for the bluebird of happiness often ends with guano dropped upon the seeker's head. Like a cat hiding under the couch who was coaxed out by the sound of a cat opener and the promise of tuna. Rather than chase happiness, let us simply make the path our goal. Together as a team, let's chant. Together. In all the secondary methods for Bodhi enlightenment, one meditates on the attributes of a tantric archetype like the moon's reflection on water. Whoops, that is an error. Together. But even if something untainted and unattached results, such meditation is like the sphere of experience of an ordinary person. The Mahasanti Yogi Prahevajra's radical teaching is that Hatha Yoga's awareness and release is superior to Mahayoga's ritual visualization and mantra, and yet most who claim to be his followers still practice it. Together. Although by identifying with the body of the archetype Great Wrathful One. Let's do a quick edit. Okay, here we go. Although by identifying with the body of the Great Wrathful One archetype, with its body wrathful grimaces as well as attributes, with even the setup concretely actualize the authentic condition of the quiescent state is not seen. Again, the Dzogchen Naljorpa Garab Dorje reminds us this time that both Tokal Mahayoga and Tikle Anu Yoga are an unproductive distraction from the power and ease of Triksho Ati Yoga with its mindfulness and meditation. Together, let us seal this morning's meditation with a bit of the old chanting, beginning with kind ethics and concluding with the four immeasurables. May all beings practice of kind communication, contact, and calmness for the spontaneous and uncontrived. May everyone be free from misery. May everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.